students, I'm Aanchal Sharma, your educator for paper 1. We have been discussing PYQs and their explanations, and today as well we'll be discussing few questions related to communication. From this class you will be learning different theories related to mass communication as well. So you have to stick with me, look at these questions that I have for you, and let us solve all these questions together. So this is the first question that I have. What do you mean by cognitive dissonance in classroom communication? Or the question is, the cognitive dissonance in classroom communication is the result of what? So what do you mean by cognitive dissonance is the one thing that this question is asking you from. So cognitive dissonance in classroom communication is the result of filtering of messages, student interest, student-based interaction, and chaotic conditions. So what do you mean by this word, cognitive dissonance? And we all know the meaning of the word cognitive. So knowing the meaning of cognitive dissonance is not a difficult task. So let me tell you the answer. The answer is D here, which means chaotic conditions. So filtering of the messages is like gatekeeping. That is not cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you are confused in your mind. So all the chaos and all the chaotic conditions in your mind is called as the cognitive dissonance. Or maybe sometimes you use the mode of gratification. You don't know the right and the difference between right and wrong. That is the point where you are struggling. This is called as the cognitive dissonance. The filtering of the message is gatekeeping. Student interest is not a cognitive dissonance. It is the perception of the student. So that is a whole lot of different thing when we talk about the student interest. Then we have the student-based interaction, and the student-based interaction is also very different than what we are talking about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a chaotic condition, and this is the chaotic condition in the mind. So whenever we see the word cognitive, we know that we are talking about the knowledge and the mental capabilities. So every confusion in the mind is called as this chaotic, or you can say the cognitive dissonance. So a cognitive dissonance is basically a mental conflict that goes in your mind. You don't understand the difference between right and wrong, or maybe you sometimes give some kind of justification to prove your point. This is called as cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is a mental conflict that occurs when your beliefs don't line up with your actions. Whatever you believe are not lining up with your actions. So you can take an example. I am coming with this notion that we know smoking kills a person, but I'm saying that maybe once if I try it, maybe once, that is not going to harm me a lot. So this is what this conflict in my mind. I know that smoking kills a person, but still I am keen to try that. This is a confusion in mind, and this is cognitive dissonance. It is an uncomfortable state of mind when somebody or someone has contradictory values, contradictory attitudes or perceptions. So sometimes because of peer group you tend to change your thinking, but ideologically you are a very different person. All of these conflicts in the minds of adolescent learner is what? These are the cognitive dissonance. Right, so here you have belief, and then there is cognitive dissonance, and here are the few actions. So there is a lot of confusion between what you believe and what is your action. So I believe smoking cigarettes is very unhealthy, but what is my action? I smoke cigarettes. Why? Because of this cognitive dissonance. I know I am at a place of unrest. It is very unpleasant. I am aware that my belief and my actions are very inconsistent. But what is happening? I came up with the solution to change my action. Yes, smoking cigarettes is very unhealthy. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. Or what can happen? I will start to change my belief. So my actions cannot rule over what my beliefs are. But when we talk about cognitive dissonance, my actions would win over my beliefs. So there will be a change of beliefs now. So the research on the smoking is very conclusive, and I continue to smoke cigarettes. So I decided that not everyone will die. Maybe I am just tasting it, and just for fun I'm doing it. So maybe I will not die. So this is what I changed my set of notions, I changed my set of beliefs, and I came up to this point that no, once if I try cigarettes, that won't kill me, right? So this is basically a disparity or a mental state of unrest in your mind. Then we have another question. This is a question of assertion reason. Let us read the assertion first. For impact of communication, the individual students must be considered as a product of common cause. Then we have the reason here. Effective teachers normally attempt to identify the general characteristics of the learners to communicate with them. This is the assertion and this is the reason given to that assertion. Here these are the two statements, and what do you think would be the correct answer? Both assertion reason are true and reason is the correct explanation of A. Both A and R are true, but R is not a correct explanation. A is true and R is not true. A is false but R is correct. Now let me tell you the answer. So the answer is A, which means that both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. Let us read the assertion first. For impact of communication, for the impact, communication के impact के लिए the individual students must be considered as a product of common cause. So what should be the common cause of the students should be dealt together. You cannot discriminate between the students. There should be a common ground and then you can actually clarify and consider all the students. So there should never be a disparity. Individual students must be considered as a product of common cause, which means that each and every individual is also important and you should pay heed to each and every person collectively as well. So don't only give preference to one set of opinions, but each and every opinion should be heard, then a product should be made, and then each and every student should be given equal value in the classroom. Or if you are talking about general communication, then if you are talking to 5 set of people, you know that each of them will have different notions. So you have to hear each of them, you have to listen each of them and then come up with a common solution so that you know all of them are fully satisfied. So this means assertion is correct. Then we have the reason. Effective teachers normally attempt to identify the general characteristics of the learners to communicate with them. Now this is also very important. You come up with the common ground, you come up with the generalized statement so that all are satisfied. So we know that the characteristics of a good teacher is what? Yes, she has to be proficient in whatever she is teaching. This is the most important characteristic. The second is that the teacher should know what she is teaching and how she is teaching. So she should know to structure the class properly. Then she should be motivating. She should know when to stop a child and how to tell their feedbacks, or maybe a sandwich feedback would be a good thing for a teacher to follow. Then it is very important that the teacher does not discriminate between any of the students. She knows what are the different values and she should inculcate these values. So all of these are the few characteristics, and we all know the teacher cannot discriminate. This means that there are some generalized concepts that the teacher would follow. These maxims are to be followed so that the learners are fully satisfied, right? Hence this means that the reason is also correct, and when you actually follow the generalized characteristics of the learners, you know that these are the basic needs and I have to provide this to this child, then definitely the individual students would also be satisfied. This means that my reason is very correct for the assertion. Let us move further. Find out the correct sequence of selectively stages in the mass communication. So what will be the correct sequence when I talk about the mass communication? So the first is exposure, then retention, then attitudinal change, perception, and the last is attention. Let me see what is the answer. The answer is D. That means this is the right answer. Now the first is A, that means exposure. Let us see here. First is exposure, then E. E is your attention. Then D. D means perception. Then you have B, that means retention would be the fourth, and this would be the fifth. Now, how is this possible? Before seeing the sequence, let us see what is basically mass communication. So, we know that there is a difference between mass communication and group communication. Now, what is this difference? In the previous class, we discussed about it. So, group communication is that communication when it is a very homogeneous kind of communication, and you know how many people are there you are discussing the things with. You know them, you can count them by their heads. You know that they all have the common needs and common beliefs. But when we talk about mass communication, here mass media being the tool of mass communication is used, because here you are talking to the masses. Here you are talking to a heterogeneous group. In your group communication, you know that feedback would be there. Maybe it can be a little bit delayed, but here the feedback is very delayed or it is not present, because you don't know who all are actually watching whatever you are teaching them. So when this video would be uploaded, this becomes a type of a mass communication. So in mass communication, we have a large number of audience that drives, and they all cannot be grouped together. So what is mass communication? It is a heterogeneous group. Hence, you cannot group them together. All of their needs cannot be taken up together. So in mass communication, we have a large group of audience that are diverse, and they all cannot be grouped in one place. So we need a certain tool or a technology for the communication process, and this tool is called as mass media, right? So there is a difference between mass communication and mass media. Mass media are the tools, and mass communication is a way of communicating. So it is a single source for transmitting the information. This media is a single source to transmit. But in mass communication, there is no direction when we discuss about the receiver. We don't know who is receiving it. So what comes into play? Perception comes into play. We have a selective perception, and I want you to learn this word. This statement is also very important, and this word selective perception has been asked by UGC a lot of time. Selective perception means you will only see those things when you think that that is right. So you have a perception made, and only you will see those things which you feel you want to see. So you will never see videos related to another paper, because you know that you are giving UGC NET. So your mind is skewed to one thing which you are willing to do. That is selective perception. So for that we need media like newspapers, radio, television and internet. To talk to the masses, we need different types of media. Here the audience is actually giving less feedback, or there is a lot of delayed feedback. So mass media constitute two things. There is media technology. These are the techniques or the skills or the methods that we use. These are basically the tools that are the outlet for communication. And we have the mass communication. Mass communication is the exchanging of information, imparting and exchanging of information to a larger amount of people, and a heterogeneous group is called as mass communication. Now there are few stages. The first stage, this is what we had in the question. The first stage of talking to anyone, or maybe attracting anyone, or maybe influencing them to have a look at whatever you are saying, right? So this is what, these are few steps and chronology that you follow. This is a stage one, that is exposure. You get yourself exposed to a particular domain. You know that you are preparing for UGC NET, hence you will visit only the videos who are related to UGC NET. So this is exposure. You get exposure to what you feel is right. So it is a selective perception, right? Then you have attention. You will only pay attention to those things which you feel will add value to whatever you are doing. So I know that watching dance videos won't help me clear UGC NET exam, but watching my video or watching the last lap videos, that is the PYQ series, will help you clear the exam. So what is it? This is your attention. It came to your attention that you have to do a particular thing to gain benefit out of it. So this is the second step. Then you form a perception related to it. Now there is a selective perception, selective selective exposure, and selective attention. All of these words are important. Then you have selective retention also. So you have a perception about certain thing, or you will build a perception about something. So there is a perception that yes, maybe mathematics is a topic that can be a little bit challenging, but teaching and communication are two things that can help me fetch a lot of marks. That I can use in my other papers also, like B.Ed. So what is this? This is your perception. This is something that you formed in the course of time. Then you have retention. Then what is selective retention? Whatever you are actually looking at, the things that are there, cluster of things and the cluster of knowledge that you will get. So you cannot retain everything. In your working memory, you will try to retain only those things that are relevant and that are needed. So this is selective retention. You will retain the things now properly which you feel are right. Then at the end, your attitude would be changed. Now this is something like an affective growth or an affective domain. Here your personality will change. So what is happening? Let us take this example. There is a selective exposure to UGC NET exam. Then you have attention. Clearing this exam can make me future assistant professor and I want to be that. I'm good at teaching. Let me do that. Then you have perception. There are 10 units. These 3 can be the best units. I can do the best in them. So this is a perception. Retention, I'll retain all the facts. I'll learn. I'll clarify. I'll take coaching. Whatever can be your mode of studying. Then there can be an attitudinal change because you will imbibe all those things. Right? So I hope this is clear. Now there are some theories related to mass communication and now UGC is asking all these theories. So in this video, this is like a bonus, and in my class we did about 23, 24 or maybe 26 around theories, and right now we are going to discuss few of them, and all of these theories are important because these are asked in the paper. Now in the previous exams, or maybe when the exam used to be a little bit easier, they used to ask straightforward questions, but right now they'll twist the statements would be difficult, they'll twist the questions. So understanding the meaning of the words and all these theories and the name of these theories are important. Also you should focus who is the founder, because match the following questions are increasing now. So I want you to also learn who talked about these theories. Right? So we have the first theory, that is the agenda setting theory. So the agenda setting theory holds that there is a mainstream of media that sets the agenda for the social discourse. So this theory says that there is always a discourse and it is always an agenda, and it is media who sets the agenda. So I would read, the agenda setting theory holds that the mainstream media, that is the bigger picture, is always set, and that would set the social discourse. Now what is discourse? Discourse is what we are talking about. We discussed what is communication discourse in the classroom. So we discussed what is discourse in classroom, the teaching learning talks that are happening. So what is discourse? Social discourse here, that is the society is talking about what? We are only talking about those things that media is telling us. Then the theory was first proposed in 1972 by Maxwell McCombs and Donald Shaw. Now this is something you have to write in your notebooks and you have to learn it. Right? So agenda theory was talked by, you should know, it was talked by Maxwell McCombs and Donald Shaw. So this theory holds that the agenda is basically a mainstream thing and media operates it. It's actually done at 2 levels. The first is, at this level, media tries to influence what the audience should think by focusing on certain set of issues while filtering out the others. So this is basically a silent objective of media. They will silently filter all those things. This is called as gatekeeping as well. They will only tell you those things that they feel are relevant, and they set an agenda. So what is the first level? The first level is media trying to influence what the audience should think. This is the key word here. Then you have the second level. At this level, media attempts to influence how to think. So how do you think about a particular thing? So we all know that at the time of COVID, there were a lot of things happening. There can be earthquake, or there were earthquakes that were happening, and there was COVID as well. But mostly you saw news related to COVID. So what is the first theory? They wanted you to think and talk only about COVID, right? Then what is how to think? They think that it is a pandemic situation. They created a havoc in your mind. Maybe it was true, maybe it was not that true to that extent. So it can happen at anything is possible, right? So it is always the role of the media, and they decide how you have to think about a particular situation, right? So this is how, this is a attributable silent way that the media does. Then you have the argumentation theory. So the argumentation theory analyzes communication by focusing on the 6 components. So these 6 components are: what do you claim out of it, what is the ground, what is the warrant, what is the backing, and what is the rebuttal, right? So rebuttal, and what is the qualifier of it. While argumentation theory has a history as old as classical philosophy back to Aristotle, its modern form can be traced to the British philosopher Stephen Tolman. So who talked about the argumentation theory? It is Stephen Tolman. So this is what this theory says, that there are always few things that you seek when you look at the media. So these are you claim, you talk about the ground, you talk about the warrant, you backing, and the qualifier, and the rebuttal also. So what is it? So there is always a claim. So this is a thesis of whatever you are trying to talk. So this is basically a thesis of whose veracity, or a person who's trying to convince the other using the argument. So there is always a claim that the media tries to put in front of you. There is always a ground. This is the backing evidence that the media would use. The media would always have a evidence of whatever claim they are trying to make. Then there is a warrant. This is a statement that enables a very logical continuity of any claim or any ground. So warrant is your statement that is important. Then what is the backing? Backing is an additional statement that if you try to you say that this is not possible, and if you think that media is saying no, then they already have a counter solution to everything. So this is how media works. Then there is the reservation or the rebuttal, and these are the statements of thought and condition that cannot falsify the claim. Or you have these statements, and if you have these statements, you can falsify the claim. Then there is qualifier, and these are the statements that express the forcefulness of the speaker's claim. So whatever you are claiming, you should be well qualified. You should have all those things or all those facts and data to say that whatever media is saying is wrong. So these are the few things, and this is how your argumentation theory is made. So how do you challenge the media? How can media challenge you? Whenever these things are talked about, this becomes an argumentation theory. Then you have the authoritarian theory. Now this theory says that the media is basically reserved its function according to the authority and control. The responsibility of the media is to support and advise the policies of the government in power and to serve the state. So basically, what is the role of the media? This role of the media, according to the authoritarian theory, says that whoever is at the authority, the media has to support it. So the media is an authoritarian system and are not allowed to print or broadcast anything that can undermine whoever is at the authority. Any offense to the existing political views is avoided here. The fundamental assumptions of the authoritarian system is that the government is infallible. That means the government is not doing anything wrong and they will support. So I am not saying that this is correct or this is wrong. This is just a theory that came into being, that it is the role of the media to talk about the authoritarian party, to talk that all the things that are at the power are correct, right? So they have to show you the correct picture. Then there is a classical rhetorical theory, and the classical rhetorical theory states that communication consists of 3 elements. Now what all are these 3 elements? Communication will only focus on the speaker, the message and the audience. So Aristotle basically started to talk about it. Ancient Greek philosophers such as Aristotle and Plato considered that rhetorical, that means the act of or the art of asking questions is very important when you are trying to express something. So this is a classical rhetorical theory in which they focus basically on the art of persuasion. So just by putting questions that are rhetorical in nature, because they know that the answer would be yes to these type of questions, they would try to persuade you. They will try to influence you. So this is the art of persuasion. Then you have, and we have discussed this, so the speaker, message and the audience are the three things that are important to them. Then you have the cognitive dissonance theory. This is the first question also that we did in today's video. Cognitive dissonance theory states that human beings have a tendency to avoid the conflict in their mind. So they tend to use their own reality according to their own benefits. So there is always a conflict between perception and reality, and they try to change their moral values according to their own set of beliefs. They'll try to choose something easy always. This is what we discussed in the first question also. The media's aim is to create cognitive dissonance within the people's belief so that they can in turn change their behavior. So media tries to use this theory so that your behavior can be changed, right? So there is an action, there is a belief, there is always inconsistency. There will be dissonance, there will be always change of belief, change in action, change in perception, and at the end you will have a different set of opinion. So this is which theory? This is cognitive dissonance. Then we have the cultivation theory. So the cultivation theory of mass communication states that more time the people spend consuming on the media, more strongly their perception would be made. So what is cultivation? Cultivation is to grow something. कुछ उगाने का, अगर आपको कुछ plant करना है, so what will you use? You will use the word cultivation. So cultivation is basically how the perception of the world around everyone is portrayed and changed. So your media and giving too much exposure to this type of media will change your perception. This theory is called as the cultivation theory. And who is the theorist who is talking about it? The Hungarian American communication theorist. We have the Georg Gubner is the one who is talking about this theory. So they are saying that there is always a TV, you are viewing a TV, there is always a learning, there is always a incidental information, and slowly and steadily there is construction. And this is how your social reality would be found. So what is construction? Constructivism is coming from this word construction. This is how your mindset will be developed gradually. So there is always some strategy, some attention, some involvement in a particular thing, and at the end your skills, your social structures and your experience will influence, and your set of beliefs would be changed. And when you change all these things, it becomes which theory? It becomes your cognitive dissonance. But if you stick on your beliefs, or if you stick, then of course your media is not playing a major role. But if you change, then this means that you were not that stable and you were suffering from the cognitive dissonance, right? So this is how the social reality would be changed. Then you have the direct effect theory. So the direct effects theory holds that the audiences passively consume whatever is portrayed in the media and thus can be easily swayed from one way to another. Now this theory says that whenever you are completely exposed to one particular thing, you tend to have an opinion related to that thing only, or you change your mindset and you are actually influenced by whatever you are saying. So whenever because we live at our home and we tend to become like our parents only. This is what this theory says. So because you are so close to your parents, whatever values they would give you, they won't directly teach it, but that would be imbibed in you. So this is what this direct effects theory talk about. There is always a frame building, and this frame is built and the frames are set in your mind. So there will be a normal external factors like the news, the values and the other political news that you see. There can be some issue specific general things also, and at the end all of these things will be combined together and you can see all this information would be processed by you. There will be an attitudinal change and there will be a behavioral change. So the frame buildings would lead to what? This would lead to a frame setting. That means your mindset would be changed. The information will be different, effects would be different, attitudinal effects would be there, and the behavioral effects would also be there. Then we have the framing theory. So the framing theory of the mass communication builds upon the agenda setting theory only. And this theory says that you only draw attention on those things that are needed to you. So it draws attention to how information is presented to the audience, in which way you seek, and how you can influence the perceptions. So in the first slide, we said that we are actually influenced by media, and whatever we want to think, media also tells us how to think related to those things. And we took the example of COVID. This is what? These are the frames that the media is providing us. So the frame theory basically is related to the second level agenda theory. And it was started by what? It was basically started by the sociologist that was called as Goffman. So there was the person called Erwin Goffman who started to talk about it, and he said that there are always some frames and you tend to believe on those frames because it is there with you, and the media is also telling you how to think about a particular thing. So they will force you to think about those particular things. This is what? This is the framing theory of media. Then comes the gatekeeping theory. We discussed this in the previous video also. What do you mean by gatekeeping? It is the filtering of the knowledge. So always you will see that the gatekeeping is done, and the things some things are left with the media only. They won't discuss it with you. So there is always gatekeeping in between. Then there is imagined communities. So this concept says that there is always an imagined community that holds the print of the capitalism, right? This enables the development of a modern nation-state nationalism. This is how nationalism is seen. So this is imagined communities. Then there is the knowledge gap theory. The knowledge gap theory states that while the spread of the media and the communication technologies has made acquiring of the knowledge easier, this spread has been unequal. So what is happening? There is always a gap between your knowledge and the one who is not exposed with the media. Also, it can be because of the digital divide. So the person who has less access to all these things would have a different perception than the person who is totally exposed to media all the time. So not everyone has gained full knowledge. There is always a gap in the knowledge that we have, right? So this is a knowledge gap theory. Then there is the libertarian theory. So the libertarian theory of mass communication is the antithesis of the authoritarian theory. So in the authoritarian theory, we discussed that whoever is at the power, the media should say that yes, they are doing right. So this is their way of treating it, and they actually support whoever is at the authority. But they can also follow this theory, that is the libertarian theory. So this libertarian theory actually says that everyone is equal, and the role of the media is to tell the truth. So the libertarianism grants a total free press, upholding that the people are inherently rational and truth seekers. So they know that you actually have to tell the audiences the truth. The privileged communication and fair comments and the matter of the public interest should be there. So the libertarians argue that the press should be seen as the fourth estate and reflecting the public opinions. Now it itself is a PYQ, because few years back it was asked that which is the fourth pillar of our communication. So the fourth pillar of this communication, to go further, is the media. So this is the fourth pillar, fourth estate of how the public or the rules and regulations are basically formed. Then comes the most important type of theory, and this theory is called as the magic bullet theory, aka it also has another name, and this name is the hypodermic needle theory. Now, what is this hypodermic needle theory? This theory says that you are being injected what media wants you to think. You are working according to the media. You know that that using this kind of product won't make me beautiful in just one day, but media will influence you. They would persuade you in such a manner that you will use those products. This is how we are being drilled and injected with all these things. So imagine that you are getting injected and there is a medicine spreading in your body, right? This is how media works. Media would spread the news in your body. This is how you will be infected. So the magic bullet theory, this is like a bullet that will go directly in your head. So the magic bullet theory or the hypodermic needle theory holds that the media communication is a very simple and one-way process. They'll tell you whatever they want you to know. Then there is the media dependency theory. The media dependency theory holds that the audience have a need for the media. And what is the need? The need is for the surveillance. Another PYQ, they also ask this one. There is the social utility. You use whatever media is telling you somewhere or the other. And there is always escape, which means for the entertainment also you use mass communication. Then there is the media logic theory. This media logic theory says that there is always a set of manners that will be unfold, and media will help you to think about a particular thing in a logical manner. Then there is the modernization theory. The modernization theory postulates that the spread of the mass media would catalyze a modernization of the traditional society. So whenever you want to modernize a particular country or a particular state, a particular community, you have to use media, and media is being used to push them towards modernization, urbanization. Then there is a multi-step flow theory, and according to this theory, the communication is not direct, but you are influenced in many folds. So the media would influence your mother would influence you. So this is how many-fold is seen. Then you have the muted group theory. So the muted group theory states that certain marginalized groups in the society find it very difficult to articulate their voices. So this theory says that till now we have this thing in the media that only the privileged people are given power and the few people who are the minority people are not given that much power. So they only think about the authority. Then you have the social responsibility theory. So we all know media has this social responsibility, social obligation to work for the people and by the people. Then we have the Soviet media theory. The Soviet media theory believes and states that there should be a control and there should be no private ownership of media. So there should be a common control, and you cannot have one private office or one private juncture from where you control the media. So media should be of everyone, not only in the hands of the few. Then there is a spiral of silence theory. So the spiral of silence theory holds that the fear of being isolated or ostracized by expressing your opinions is widespread when we talk about the media. The spiral of silence theory holds that the fear of being isolated or ostracized for expressing a contrary opinion leads people to remain silent always. So you are silent. Why? Because you don't get a chance to express yourself. So this is the spiral theory. Then you have the symbolic interaction. The symbolic interactionism theory of the mass communication states that how mass media structures our perception in the world. This theory is also talking how your perception is changing with the changing of the media. So this is how interactionism, whatever you see, you become like that. Then you have the use of gratification theory, and this says that you use media in a lot of manner. So the uses and the gratification theory seeks to understand how the users consume media. Rather than trying to only investigate the effect of the media, this theory says that media is useful at a particular time also. They are also telling you and giving you a lot of things. There is also a lot of good things that the media can give you. This theory states that the the media consumers are passive consumers and you will consume what the media is giving rather than active. So you're not active, you will consume, but it also gives you good things. So this is what is happening. There is always a surveillance duty that the media does. There is an identity formation, there is a relationship formation, and there is diversion that can also be done because of media. So this is how the media will construct the knowledge in your mind. This is something like the cultivation theory, because we, being the audience, we are always passive. And because of the excessive use of the media, we can never come forward and we can never be an active participant in this kind of behavior. Then we have the last question, and this question is, these are the two statements, assertion and reason. Assertion is agenda building is a collective communication process in which media, government and the citizenry reciprocatively influence one another. So what is this statement? This statement means, first of all, you should know that they are talking about the agenda building theory, right? So you should know what is agenda, that yes, agenda is created by the audience and by the media. And do you think that the media and the audience are interrelated? Yes, of course, because media will talk about the audience only. Yes, to some greater extent, media is the one who is active and they will talk according to themselves, but we are influenced by it. We also are in direct contact with the media, and media would tell what we want media to talk about. So this is how there is always an interdisciplinary nature. So there is media, there is government, and there is citizenry, and so all these three things are reciprocatively working with one another. What will media talk about if there is no government, if there are no citizens? This means that yes, gatekeeping is done, yes, filtering is done, but media is only talking because they have us. So this statement becomes the correct answer. Right? This is correct. Now, is the reason correct? The reason is agenda building presumes cognitive effects and in effect audience with less societal level effects. So do you think this is correct? Read the statement again. This is the reason. The assertion said that this is a collective process. Yes, some interdependence is seen and we become passive, but media is only talking about those things that we are affected by. We all were stuck by COVID, so media was talking about COVID, and we were influenced by whatever media was saying. Media was influenced by whatever we were actually suffering at that time. That means there is interdependency. But is this effect less on us? No, the effect is always more on us. This means that the agenda building theory says that the cognitive effects and the inactiveness of the audience is always more on the societal effects. So always the society is affected more rather than the media. Media is influenced less by us and we are influenced more by the media. Hence, this, which is the right answer? The right answer is C, which means that A is true but R is false. Let us look at the explanation. So this agenda building is basically a collective communication process. The capacity of the news communication to impact is always greater, and this is the agenda setting theory. That is, if the news story is regularly covered, the audience will be considered as the subject and they would be important. Actually, it is the media only who shows the public what is to be considered as a significant issue. The audience's ability to think for themselves is also developed and portrayed by the media only. This is how agendas are set. Then we have the second reason statement, and this is wrong. Why? Because the agenda building has been examined under the broad category of the cognitive effects, and always these effects lead to high societal effects. So this is not low societal effects but high societal effects. This means that C is the right answer, right? So I hope you understood today's class. in all these PYQs that we discussed, we were basically talking about mass communication and how these theories are important. They can be asked in a single word statement like the cognitive dissonance question, or it can be match the following. It can be directly asking about the theories also, right? So you should know about mass communication. You should know about all the relevant theories related to mass communication, and this would make it very easy for you to solve the questions, especially the assertion reason and the statement wise questions, right? So I hope you understood today's class. I made the things very easy and lucid. If anything, you have any doubts, you can write it in the comment section. We'll surely reply to you. Now, thank you so much for attending and keep studying. Thank you.